morning, or good afternoon, or good evening, depending on the time zone and the time that you are watching this video. My name is Pedro Silva from OPCO. We are a consultant and training company located in Portugal, and we have the privilege to be the exclusive representatives for the MMOG next to ODET International for Portugal and Spain, and to have also the contract for Morocco and Tunisia in North Africa. So it's our privilege to introduce the new V6, the new version 6 of the revised standard. At the moment that the trainings are already developed and are starting to be shared with the public, as well as the translations, in our case, to Portuguese and to Spanish, are being concluded. So those translations will soon be available when you download or when you are using the new version of the informatic platform for the reporting. You will be able to have it also in Portuguese and Spanish, among the other languages that will be available. It was also our privilege to be part again, as we were already to the V5, to be part of the group that developed the concept for the training, and that was included in the kickoff for the new requirements next to ODET, next to AAG, as well as with the other partners such as Gallia or other companies, including OEMs, and having also even now for this new version, the participation of German OEMs like BMW for the development of this standard. So I will be introducing just the first part. My colleague Vânia will introduce herself in a couple of minutes. So just now to introduce and to provide a brief context of what we are doing in terms of OPCO and in terms of ODET participation. So we are in the market since 2006. Apart from this relation with ODET International, we have also relations with VDA QMC, with SMMT in the UK, who also takes part on the development of the MMOG. We have relations in terms of trainings also with OEMs like Stellantis for the APQP, PPAP versions. And we are in the market since 2006. And since 2015, we took a different approach that has led us to this situation. The relation with most of the offices or entities in terms of automotive industry, and the possibility to support our customers not only here in Portugal, but in terms of the MMOG, several situations also in Spain and also in North Africa. Apart from this activity with the MMOG and in a broader scope with other VDA-related or OEM-related trainings, we had the opportunity to share our activity next to customers a little bit all over Europe, and not only in Europe, but also to other countries, North Africa already said, but also to North and South America, and even having participants in recent times, participants from countries such as China, Singapore, Indonesia, and reaching with our trainings those countries. Also to have a little disclaimer, this video is, the objective is just to provide a brief overview of what has changed and what remains the same. So this is not intended to work as an upgrade training, because we will just touch the topics, most relevant topics. And this is also an OPCO activity. It's the result of the translations of the participation in the groups, of course, but this is not binding. ODET International is a OPCO presentation to share the first concepts of the training. Well, that was for my part. I will be joining Vânia as well in some of the comments, but without further ado, I would pass over to Vânia to explain and to go through what has changed and what has remained the same. Thank you, Vânia. It's up to you now.
Hello to all. My name is Vânia Azevedo. I am part of OPCO team and I am a MMOG trainer. So regarding about the new requirements and what is still the same and did not change. Pedro agora colocava a apresentação. E eu voltava atrás. É melhor.
Então é mesmo porque não estava a contar com isso. Portanto, eu estou aqui a continuar a gravar com o OBS, estou a ver a Vânia e eu estou aqui num cantinho. Portanto, Vânia, queres que eu partilhe a apresentação?
Sim.
Ou partilhas tu a partir daí?
Ou então partilha a tua última versão.
É melhor partilhares daí que aí controlas o avanço.
Ok, então envia-me a última versão que eu não a tenho.
Eu não alterei nada daquilo que me enviaste, só alterei a minha parte.
Ok, então eu fechei tudo se não fosse haver aqui um problema. Ok, portanto, ok, já aqui está. Vou partilhar e
ok, portanto agora aqui no OBS está a apresentação principal e no topo, num lado está a Vânia, no outro lado estou eu.
E, ok, vou só fazer isto para não aparecer a janelinha do Teams enquanto eu apresento. Ok? Pode ficar assim.
Eu não vi aqui nenhuma alteração.
Ok.
Portanto, eu continuo a ver em baixo grande a apresentação, num canto está a Vânia, no outro estou eu.
Ok. Bom, então eu recomeço agora. Agora eu recomeço.
3, 2, 1.
Hello to all. My name is Vânia Azevedo. I'm part of OPCO team and I am a MMOG trainer. So regarding MMOG version 6, what stays the same, and we will see in this first part of the presentation which were the requirements that did not change with this new version. So consider what made some of you for sure remember the objective of this MMOG standard is to guarantee the continuous improvement about the supply chain operation, about logistic operation. This objective is still the same, and also the alignment between IATF requirements and lean management methodology, they still the same. So in these base requirements, in this revision, did not change anything. Regarding the standard, it keeps the two versions, the full version, the basic version, and the application, the IT application for to make the reports, the MMOG NP platform, still the same, but as we will see in the next minutes with some upgrades regarding this new version. Consider about the structure of the MMOG. Still the structure in 6 chapters, okay, and each chapter are complete with sub chapters. We will see that in some cases we have some changes, some new chapters, some changes between them, or which subchapter appears now in this version number 6, but you will see that the structure of the standard did not change, as you know, in version 5. Regarding the assessment methodology, as you remember, according to how many points, the overall assessment, the overall results, to have this final result, we have different criteria for if it's a F1 criteria, F2, or a F3. In this case, this individual assessment for each criteria is still the same, did not change, as the same approach for the final or the overall assessment about to be A, B, or C final or overall score. Okay. In this case, it's the same for full version. For the basic version, did not change. Have the same rules, the same criteria to having the final the assessment. Okay, so in this case, you don't feel any change. Consider the version 5. Okay, but as you can see, there are few, or in this case, regarding the assessment, regarding the criteria or the structure, they don't change. They have the same structure. So for you that knows very well the version number 5, maybe you don't feel so many change as you can expect. But let me go to see what changed. What are the new criteria, or maybe some change and consider some criteria that moves for another subchapter, for example. So in this case, for the full version, we have now 11 new criteria, okay? But nevertheless, in the overall or the total of number of criteria decrease in the version number 6. In version number 5, we have 187 criteria, and now we have 176 criteria, okay? But nevertheless, we'll see more in detail, and we'll see which will be these new criteria or the new requirements regarding these new criteria, okay? Regarding and looking for the F3 criteria, okay, in terms of number, in the version number 5, we have in this version 43 criteria, but now we have 2 more new criteria. Okay, so as you can see, the total number of criteria, they decrease to this version number 6, but we have more F3 criteria to fulfill in case that we want to be an A or a final A assessment. Okay, consider the F2 criteria. They decrease. Okay, so as you can see, the change between F2 and F3. Okay, F3 they increase, in F3 and F2, sorry, they decrease, and we have less 2 criteria in this version 6. And this is for the full version. Consider F1 criteria. Now we have only 54 criteria. We have less 9 criteria since the last version number 5. Nevertheless, some of these F1 criteria, they changed the assessment. Some of them they changed to be an F3, for example, criteria. For the basic version, that maybe for some of you this is the first contact with MMOG. Now we have 96 criteria, okay? But nevertheless, the total of number decrease, but in these 96 criteria, we have 6 new criteria for the basic version, okay? So, about the new subchapters. Like I mentioned, we have new criteria, the structure in terms of chapters still the same, but we have new chapters or new subchapters that were introduced in this version 6. The first one, and maybe the first that maybe can let us think about these criteria, is about environment, social and governance requirements, the ESG requirements. Okay, we'll see more in a little detail about these requirements. Okay. In chapter 2, we have a new subchapter about crisis management, okay? And as you can see in the last version, we don't have this type of subchapter or requirements, not in this way. Consider other new subchapters. For example, in chapter 3, phase out parts. But nevertheless, in version 5, we already have requirements or criteria about phase out parts, but now we have for chapter 3, this new subchapter about these products. And chapter 6 about supply chain requirements, okay, a subchapter regarding the supplier compliance and supply chain resilience, okay. As you can see, even consider the version number 5, you have here new topics, new requirements, okay, inside these new subchapters, okay. Consider now more in detail about these new requirements or these new criteria about these subchapters. The first is about, or the first subchapter that we will analyze is in chapter 1.6 about risk management and development. Okay. Now in this case, we have how this risk management, how the risk approach will apply for the strategic plan in the organization, for example. Or, for example, about operating procedure and work instruction, how this subchapter will have new requirements, and for sure appears in chapter 1 about strategic, about planning of organization, and how this operating procedure will be created. Regarding other new subchapters, for example, 3.2, the capacity planning, for example, they were reviewed with some new criteria. For example, about collaboration, this subchapter was reviewed with some changes, some criteria that changed the assessments, okay, or the classification, and about chapter number 5, for example, about inventory or collaboration, that in the past we had communication instead of collaboration, that changed the name and or how it was described in this version. Okay. So now more in detail and how we can see these new criteria more in detail. I don't know, maybe Pedro wants to make some comment regarding this subchapter 1.2 about these new criteria about environment, social and governance requirements.
Yeah, this is really one of the changes, but we cannot say that it's a surprise. So if we realize what has been the last developments, not on IETF, because it's staying since 2016 with the sanction interpretations and so on. So not so much with IETF, but if we look to some of the OEMs, customer-specific requirements, issues like sustainability, issues regarding circular economy, issues related to recyclability and so on, all of those are gaining a new expression, are gaining a new weight in the requirements. So this issue we are talking about environment, talking about governance, talking about those topics. Of course, that is a normal development from what we can see already from the OEM's point of view. Here, MMOG, also for you that are already used to the version 5, you know that some topics were already more focused in this type of standard. Now we will have this. Vânia will talk also a little bit about the crisis management, and that's also one interesting topic. For those of you who attended some of our trainings, you know, and I think Vânia was saying the same, the version 5 was released before the pandemics, was released before all of these transformations. And it was not updated during that period. Of course, that the requirements were already generic enough, let me say like this, to cope with all of these transformations. But now, apart from the requirements that already existed in the previous version, These topics, ESG, crisis management, and specific issues related, for instance, with capacity planning, we will see with a further involvement, further focus in these V6. Vânia?
Okay, and thank you, Pedro. Regarding the subchapter 1.7 is about risk and risk management and development. In this case, these criteria already exist in the version 5, but now they changed the subchapter, the place there. In the version 5, they were in the chapter 2, okay, in this case 2.5, and now they passed to the chapter 1. And in this case is also with a new criteria regarding how this risk management will be passed down to the supply chain, for example, and how, for example, the analysis of IT system from the supply chain will be a guarantee also in the strategy of the organization. Okay. Regarding other new criteria, in this case about subchapter 2.4 about training criteria. In the version 5, we have this training criteria has a F1, but now in this last release, we have a F3. And for sure, this pandemic situation and other situations sometimes create issues in the organization with lack of knowledge or lack of people with the correct training or enough training to fulfill some tasks. So that's one of the reasons for this criteria that is not new, but was assessment for another with more risk as a F3. But now we have the subchapter 2.5 about crisis management. So in this case about crisis management, what is the objective of the chapter is to prepare the organization for a crisis situation and consider the risk assessment, consider the scope of product, the organization, the supply chain, also to guarantee during this situation of crisis how the communication with the supply chain, with the customers regarding logistic issues, for example, will be conducted, and to prepare better the organization for those situations. But nevertheless, consider the last years about pandemic situation, issues in supply chain that for sure you listen several times, issues or organization that stop the production, the line production, for example, that some supply don't have parts, for example, to deliver, is to prepare better all the supply chain for this situation of crisis. Consider other new criteria. In this case, about capacity and production planning, the chapter 3. In this case, in subchapter 3.2, we have a new criteria about strategic planning. In this case, how the strategic planning of organization can anticipate the business evaluation. How the strategic planning of organization will consider not only the customer demands or the customer requirements, but how the organization will guarantee the evolution about the business, how they will guarantee that they will survive, consider a situation about crisis or some issue that can appear. But nevertheless, we have another criteria that was revised, okay, existing in the version 5, but there were two different criteria, and now the criteria about the forecast and shipping planning is only one criteria in this new version. Regarding even the subchapter 3.4, we have now two new criteria, okay, that in the past they were in 5.2, but now they change and they go to this 3.2, and they are F3 criteria. So as you can see internally in terms of production planning and capacity, we have new requirements that for sure will give you during the training to see more in detail maybe the action or maybe like a gap analysis between F5 and F6 for these new criteria. Consider even the chapter 3. As you can see, chapter 3, we have some change or more change than in the others. Also two criteria, there were review, and one is now F3. As you can see, some of new F3 in this version 6 appears in chapter 3. Okay. Consider also the supplier interface. Okay, so the requirements that we saw in chapter 1 regarding environment, social, and governance also will be deployment, also will be passed down to the supply chain. Okay, the same way that we must to implement it in organization, we need to guarantee, or the organization will guarantee also these requirements for the supply chain, and also the resilience about the requirements for the supply chain. Okay, risk assessment. Also, this is not a new requirements about risk assessment, about risk mitigation, but in this case, you have a new criteria for to pass down to the supply chain and guarantee that also the suppliers make their own risk assessment, and how they will identify this situation that can put in cause the delivery of parts. I don't know if Pedro wants to make some comments regarding this new criteria for the supply chain, for the supply interface.
Here, and as I was saying a while ago, and with all the transformations that have occurred in the world, with not only the pandemics but the war, the change in the supply chains, the change in the availability of raw materials or materials such as the chips and memories and so on. The focus here on the risk assessment and the evaluation of the entire supply chain has been much more focused now. If you remember, still from the V5 situations, like the footprint of the supply chain, the evaluation of the supply chain down from the OEM tier 1 to the tier N supplier, that was already a part of the requirements. This type of situations in terms of the risks is now clearly one of the subjects. And looking to the world, there is not much hope that things will return to what they were before. So the changes, the volatility of the world, of the supply chains, and the risks associated, as all of you feel in the day by day, will be one of the focus here. How to implement it and how to do it, having in consideration that the MMOG is applied to tier 1s, but also to tier 3 or tier 4, even though with the basic version. But how to do it, that's one of the topics that we had approached already, some potential solutions in the V5 trainings. That will be also one of the topics to address now here with the V6.
Okay.
Vânia?
Okay, thank you, Pedro. And now we will see how the MMOG platform will evaluate for this version 6. So for the organization that already have license for version 5, it's possible to make the upgrade for the version 6, but in this case, you need to contact directly ODET to guarantee all this process so you can make the upgrade of your licenses for this new version. But nevertheless, it's also in this new version 6, you make duplication of assessment. So it's possible to recreate, for example, you create an assessment using the V5, for example, using a full version, and you can upgrade your assessment for the V6, but nevertheless, you have here some new criteria, some change, but it's possible to make a duplication of the assessments, okay? So now I'll pass to Pedro about the next steps, about the trainings, okay?
Thank you, Vânia. Ok, aqui se calhar é melhor cortar outra vez algum bocadinho.
Sim.
Deixem-me só passar então aqui para a apresentação. Too much. Esperem só um bocadinho, que entretanto estava-me aqui a lembrar de alguns comentários. E então vou se isto me deixar, que isto está tudo a encravar. Vou voltar aqui ao Teams, vou voltar a partilhar
A apresentação.
Para a apresentação em modo de apresentação. Ok. E vou voltar em 3, 2, 1. So for the next steps. Next steps, of course, we will start with the trainings. We are planning to have the normal training for newcomers to the MMOG, so the 2 days training to revise all the concept of the MMOG, all the supplier customer relations, to go through the platform, through the informatic platform, and to revise, of course, the requirements. We will have also the upgrade training for those of you that are already used to from V4, V5, so only to go deeper in what Vânia just explained and go through the requirements and what they will imply in terms of implementation. But the real next step, and that I recommend to all of you, is to get in contact with your customers to coordinate the transition. As we could see, even during the V5 and until a couple of months ago, there were customers, OEMs, still accepting the V4, still accepting the Excel format, while some other OEMs were already focusing on the V5 and working with the MMOG.NP platform. So one of the things that I really recommend is for you to coordinate with your customers the transition period. What will be accepted, until when, and how to coordinate with them, not only the due dates for the submissions, but also what will be accepted. If it is still the V5, or if you need to transfer to the V6, and until when, and to make sure that from supplier and customer that you are on the same page. Apart from that, and from our side, we will keep this type of activities, so not only this type of videos and publications, but also through our trainings, the support to the companies, mainly here in Portugal and Spain, but also for Morocco, Tunisia, and as well as online and in English to wherever the requirement may come from. So you will have our contacts also here in the YouTube channel and in our social media. So please feel free to contact if there is any question, if there is any comment, or if you need any type of support, as we have done during all the V5. We will support whatever we may, and if not, we are still in contact with Odette to provide a proper answer to all the organizations. So, thank you very much. Thank you to Vânia also for the presentation and for the work done for the presentation today. And from our side, I would not say goodbye, but see you next time, maybe in one of our trainings or in another activity such as this. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you to all.